Gluten-free food prices are soaring. Pop quiz, which one of these three celebrity chefs owns a restaurant chain that's recently glutened someone? And gluten-free people, we're going to war with McDonald's. Welcome back to GFN, the home of your latest gluten-free news. I'm Morgan. Let's look at the headlines. Welcome back to GFN, recently awarded Best Graphic Design of any gluten-free news show on YouTube. How about that? This was supposed to be July's GFN. For those sharp-minded out there, you may notice it's August. Sorry about that. Got a bit distracted. It's been really hot. It's really hot today. This is literally a glass of ice cubes. Let's look at the news. Sound the war horns. We're going to war with McDonald's. McDonald's has made the first move against celiacs, nay, all people with allergens, this month when a woman was handed the allergen list with a handwritten note on it that said, "Fuck off and die." Yeah, you heard that right. Bernie Bowles was looking at getting a McFlurry from a Hampshire McDonald's, and because the McFlurry was a Galaxy one, Galaxy's one of those products where some of them are gluten-free and some are not, so she asked for the allergen list. Now they have these allergen lists in the form of like a leaflet, so she was handed one by a member of staff which had that very friendly note on it. I'll show you up here. McDonald's has confirmed it was scrawled by one of its employees and that appropriate action was undertaken. Bernie was also given a £15 gift card. Bernie herself said it could have just been banter between the employees, but either way, it was incredibly inappropriate, especially on an allergens list. Could this situation be a good opener for conversations about allergens at McDonald's? Yes, it could. Do I think McDonald's is going to do anything past reprimanding maybe that one employee that did it? No, I do not. Because it's such a huge company, I would love to think that there is some good allergen training in place across all the McDonald's, but realistically I think it's more likely that they've got specific processes in place to maybe avoid things like cross-contamination, but maybe the reasons behind those processes aren't understood by the employees, if that makes sense. I don't know, let's boycott McDonald's anyway. Look, if you see me in Italy next week eating gluten-free McDonald's, no you didn't. Boycott McDonald's! Woo! Our next story is looking at a study on whether biopsies are still needed for a celiac diagnosis in adults. You may have heard that some places don't do biopsies for children in celiac disease diagnosis, but now we're looking at whether that can be applied for adults as well. So I read through the study so you don't have to. Unfortunately, there was a lot of jargon and I didn't understand a word. Luckily, a lot of studies just have a conclusion section, so let's just jump to that. Based on the study's finding, the TGA titers were highly effective in diagnosing celiac disease without the need for a biopsy. However, it seems that the biopsy will still remain part of the diagnosis for a while. In fact, the British Society of Gastroenterology has stated that the biopsy-free approach in adults is premature due to the incompatibility between kits. Now that's the testing kits. I didn't realise that they had several different ones. So it looks like maybe we'll be headed in that direction in the far future, but not for now. For my fellow celiacs watching, you're going to be like, well, what's this got to do with me? I'm not getting diagnosed again. Fair enough. To my fellow celiacs, do you ever feel like every week there's something that comes out that we're at a higher risk for? I've got another one for you. Coronary artery disease. Apparently celiacs are at a higher risk for that now too. Researchers found out of the 23,441 people hospitalised with celiac disease between 2016 and 2018, 18% were found to have coronary artery disease, which is a hard word to say. Risk factors for CAD in celiac patients included hypertension, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and a family history of CAD. That comes from a statistic of people who have ended up in hospital because of celiac disease and then found to have coronary artery disease as well. Our study confirms that, as with non-celiac disease individuals, males and the white race are at an increased CAD risk in the celiac disease population. Great, add it to the list. Right, we've had a lot of bad news recently. Anything from the pandemic to wars, fires, the climate. I do actually have a piece of good news for you. The gluten-free tortilla market has nearly doubled and is expected to reach $1.3 billion this year. Yeah, people are loving their corn-based gluten-free tortillas. Why is this good news? Well, the demand for more gluten-free products means that there will be more gluten-free products and more companies competing, which means lower prices for the consumer. So if you notice the prices coming down in gluten-free tortillas, you now know why. But they also might be going up because of inflation and the rising cost of everything on this goddamn planet. But now let's find out if you guessed the correct celebrity chef whose restaurant chain has gluten someone in this last month. If you guessed Jamie Oliver, you'd be wrong. If you guessed Gordon Ramsay, you'd be wrong. It's Gino D'Acampo. Well, it's not him directly, but one of his restaurants gluten someone, okay? In fact, woman vomits blood after anniversary meal at Gino D'Acampo's restaurant. Amanda, who has celiac disease, ended up in A&E after vomiting blood. After that, she had to take 2 weeks off work because she still had severe stomach pains and fatigue. She said, "I think they gave me a normal pizza, but I can't prove that," after she told doctors what happened and they went through her medical history in A&E. But the doctors did say that it was probably most likely due to a gluten reaction. However, they couldn't rule out food poisoning because her white blood cells were high. Obviously, we're talking about it because it was most likely a glutening, but geez, food poisoning ain't that good either. Just another reason to avoid chains. You may have noticed yourself that gluten-free food prices, along with all food prices at the moment, are soaring. Shoppers with allergies face discriminatory inflation as free-from food prices soar. Just as a couple of examples of this, Warburton's gluten-free multi-seed loaf rose 8% from $1.85 to £2 in July. Genius White free-from rolls have risen from £2 to $2.10 on the 4th of July, and then later from $2.10 to $2.20 on just the 18th of July. Gluten-free food, of course, is not the only one being targeted in this inflation. Dairy-free and lactose-free brands too are seeing price rises. For example, Arla lacto-free soft cheese rose 25% from £1.40 to £1.75. Now, I know that sounds like only 30p or 20p, but oh my god, does it build up? I found my personal weekly shopping has gone from £30 to about $45. Just from the increase of everything. And I don't even buy that many gluten-free products from the free from section. That's just from everything. The issue of why we're talking about specifically gluten-free food is because it is rising beyond the rates of inflation at the moment. But unfortunately, there are staples that you do tend to need to buy from the free from section, if that's bread or pasta or soy sauce for me. There is no option for us to just go with the cheaper brand like you can in the rest of the supermarket. We just have to be stuck with those prices. And who else is weighing in on this? It's none other than the wonderful Sarah Howells, GF blogger, if you may know her from Instagram. It's not fair that we have to pay a premium. Woman with celiac disease reveals struggles of pricey gluten-free food during cost of living crisis. That woman being Sarah. Let's see what Sarah had to say. Buying gluten-free food has always come at an extra cost, and to a point, I do understand why. The ingredients used are less popular and therefore more expensive, and certified gluten-free food has to be produced without any risk of cross-contamination with various checks and audits along the way. That being said, if you start a gluten-free diet by just trying to replace everything you used to eat with a gluten-free version, you're going to get a shock at the checkout. I'm sure that happened to a lot of us. Am I right? Sarah also talks a little bit about cheating on a gluten-free diet. She says, cheating on a gluten-free diet when you have celiac disease is just not an option, and it upsets me to think there are people potentially feeling like they can't follow a gluten-free diet for their health reasons because they just can't afford to. It's simply not right, and I 100% agree. And I do have experiences with people who message me going, sometimes I cheat, I just can't afford it, and it honestly breaks my heart. What are the solutions to this? Well, one of them is looking at eating more naturally gluten-free food, because things like vegetables, rice, those prices tend to stay pretty low, and learning how to cook with them can be very valuable. In the article, it mentions a bunch of recipes that Sarah has that are really low cost to make but still extremely delicious. Actually, there are a lot of gluten-free bloggers at the moment that are doing like a how to make 5 meals off £25, stuff like that. There is a lot of resources, specifically gluten-free resources that are out there that are just ready for the picking. It is a bit of a tricky one though, because it does mean you've got to get more involved with the kitchen, and that might not be something that you're used to, not that something that you were brought up with, and it might be a huge learning curve for you. But at this point, during this cost of living crisis, if you need to be cutting down on food costs, the best way to go is with food that is naturally gluten-free. And that kind of hurts me to say, I'll tell you why. Sometimes you get those Facebook chains where people are starting out going, hey, I need help, I'm just starting out with a gluten-free diet, I don't know what to eat, I don't know what to do. And there are some comments that are a little bit patronizing, in my opinion, that go, well, just eat naturally gluten-free food, just do this, just do that. whereas some people might not be equipped with those skills or with those meals that require only naturally gluten-free food. So that kind of annoys me, but that argument of having naturally gluten-free food is important in the conversation of actually saving money around gluten-free food. But also, if you're just transitioning to a gluten-free diet and you're like, well, I just want to eat a biscuit and maybe like a cheese toaster, you can have those things as well. Of course, if you can afford it, which you should be able to afford it as well. This is just a mess. The last news story that I saw this month is that patients with celiac disease report greater dating hesitancy and social anxiety. I definitely had the social anxiety, but I don't know if that's about celiac disease, am I right? But really, truly, I'm quite lucky. I've been with James since before celiac disease, so he went through that whole thing with me. I can only imagine how much fun that would be to bring up on a first date. If anyone's got any good stories, feel free to write in. That could be a fun segment that we do next month. And by fun, I mean ones that went terribly wrong. So, a clinical dietitian at the Celiac Disease Centre at Columbia University said, we found that dating posed obstacles to compliance with gluten-free diets. While on dates, about 38% were uncomfortable explaining precautions to waiters in front of their dates. Can relate to that. About 28% engaged in riskier eating behaviours on a date. I can definitely relate to that in the past. And 7.5% admitted to intentionally consuming gluten while on a date. Overall, the study found that a majority of their participants reported that celiac disease did have a major or moderate impact on their dating life. Nearly half admitted that they were hesitant to even go on dates because of celiac disease. And hey, if that is you, do not feel ashamed. I totally understand where you're coming from. That can be a really hard thing to do, to put yourself out there. Talk about your dietary requirements on a first date. Because we all know that people have these preconceived ideas that people on diets are like doing it because it's a fad and are just fussy and high maintenance and stuff like that. I can definitely understand if you're worried about what someone's going to think of that. I am actually putting together a video about advocating for yourself with celiac disease, so hopefully that might be able to help one of these circumstances. If you've got a specific question about that, let me know. But otherwise, there's some really great celiac disease dietitians on Instagram that I follow that all have really amazing, empowering information. Some of those I will just pop here so you can go check them out for some good information about that. Also, I totally get it, and I totally would have been like this in my first couple of years of celiac disease. Luckily, now I talk about my own poop online. It's really broken down walls for me. Speaking of poop, welcome to a quick segment called Spotlight on Poop, where we're going to quickly talk about what's a healthy poop, because I talk about it so often and never actually give you any helpful information. This month has been a wild ride for my bowels, unfortunately. I'll tell you what, my poop that was coming out, not even on the Bristol stool chart. So right here is the Bristol stool chart. You've got type 1 to type 7. This one's from Medical News Today. They all kind of look the same. So what I was experiencing in the last few days, I can only describe as type 8, where I was pooping water, and that's not good. So when I talk about what I swung backwards and forwards from before I got diagnosed with celiac disease, I'm talking about I was either type 1 or I was type 7. And by swinging backwards and forwards, I did very quickly hit every single poo on this chart as I was moving to the other side. So truthfully, type 4, I would have one type 4 poop, just the perfect poop, once every 7, 8, 10 days. Then it would go all the way up to hard lumps, come all the way back, nice poop, all the way down to diarrhea. Just like that for my whole life. Hey, and that's not good. So let's just ask ourselves now, where are we? What are we doing? Me, at the moment, I'm sitting between 5 and 4 because I'm still sort of coming out of whatever the heck I've been having. But usually I'm a type 4. I don't mean to brag, but yeah, that's my poops. What are you? Let me know in the comments. Here's another poop one that's quite artistic. Soft serve. That concludes our spotlight on poop. I'm doing this so we feel more normal talking about poop because it is so important. One day I will definitely do a big video on poop, but I need to learn a lot more before I do that. But at this point, we're just normalizing it. Everybody poops, and if they're not, they have serious health conditions. But anyway, that is the end of GFN for this month. If you have got any gluten-free news stories that you would like me to cover in next month's episode of GFN, which will probably also be an August GFN, or maybe it'll be early September. Early September? That's basically Christmas. Thank you for sticking around if you've watched up to this point. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.